and she's a Fiorian. That's another thing. They've changed it. The country is called Fiori because that's the Italian word for flower. And this other dimension is filled with flowers and rainbows, and Pegasus is there, which is a big white horse with wings. And they have spiders that have elevators, and they have huge turquoise birds called turos, and they kind of look like a swan, but you can ride on their back, they're so big. So that's what the other dimension looks like. So as I wrote the book, the country is called Fiori. That is absolutely the Italian word for flower. But when it came back, they said the creatures were Fiorians. And I had thought of them as being Fiorians. So I was telling a friend of mine about this, and she said, well, they call people from Florida Floridians. So I think I'm going to go back to the publisher and tell him I want my creatures to be Fiorians again. That's how I think of them.
And why did you want to write a book?
I wanted to write a book because my little boy was about your age when he was hurt very badly. And I wanted to write a book that gave kids the courage to go to an adult, a teacher like Mrs. Spenle, or your minister, if somebody's hurting you, because that should never happen to a child. And it broke my heart that it happened to my child, and he was so scared, and he locked himself in a closet. He was too afraid to even tell me what happened. So I wrote the book to give other kids that are hurt the courage to go find somebody, because there's always somebody out there that can help them. Anybody else?
Is the other dimension real?
Ooh, I think you're probably going to have to read the series of books to find that out. Okay? Again, it's a beautiful place, and Ellie as a guide, and she will be a guide for her whole life, even after she grows up, she can travel back and forth between that dimension and here through the reflection of a child. So she can travel through a mirror, she can travel through the water, she doesn't get wet, she doesn't get hurt. At one point in the book, her baby brother gets kidnapped, and she's at the fair. She's at the Dunn County Fair over in Menominee. What's she supposed to do? She ran into one of the barns, and they have what they call tack boxes. You know what a tack box? They're made out of shiny metal. So Ellie suddenly had something shiny that gave a reflection that she could go through to get to Fiori. And when she got there, she was assigned a warrior, and his name is Amadeus. He has huge wings, and every one of the Fiorans has a special capability. So his capability is to be able to raise his arms and create lightning and storms. And so later in the book, he does this to help get Ellie's little brother back. He creates a storm on the highway, so the woman that stole the baby brother can't drive because it's raining too hard. So each Fiorian has their own special power, magic power. But who knows? There might be another dimension out there named Fiori. Yes?
Does she get her brother back?
She does get her brother back. I can give that part of the book away. Yes?
Do you think the land Fiorian is actually invisible because they made it invisible so no one can go there and attack them?
That's right. Absolutely. Very, very good. That was my purpose in the other dimension, and why nobody over the age of 8 can see the Fiorians, because if some of the really mean adults in this world knew that they existed, they'd find a way to get rid of them. So we have to protect the other dimension, and we have to protect the Fiorians. And that's Ellie's job. And you know what else? She finds out in the book her grandma's a guide too. Her grandma lives out in San Diego, California. So she was really excited about that, to find out she had somebody she could talk to so that she could learn how to be a very, very good guide. Anybody else have any questions? Sure.
Did anybody else in your family be a guide?
In Ellie's family, no. It was just Ellie and her grandma. Yes?
Did anybody else get kidnapped from Ellie's family?
Nobody else got kidnapped, just her baby brother. She also helped a little girl who was being bullied on the playground, okay? And the boy that was bullying her, his name is Jimmy Backus. And Jimmy was just terrible to this little girl because she was a little bit chubby, and he made so much fun of her. Well, I have a little girl who's 10 who is helping me with the book, and her name is Annika. So my book has a co-author. Annika hasn't written any of it, but Annika gives me ideas, okay? So we're very early in the book, and Jimmy Backus has just bullied Shirley, and they come back into the classroom, and the Fiorans in the younger grades come into Ellie's classroom. She's 10, remember? So she doesn't have any Fiorans in her classroom, because they only are with the kids up until they're 8 years old. So the Fiorans all come in, and they first push Jimmy Backus's book on the floor, and Miss Ellis gets really angry. And then they drop his pencils on the floor, because Jimmy needed to know what it was like to be bullied, because he was bullying other people. Well, Annika read this part of the book, and she said, we need to save Jimmy Backus. I didn't expect that. I said, well, Annika, he's a really bad little boy. He's a bully. No, she says, we need to save Jimmy Backus. He needs to be a guide. So I had to rethink everything in the book, and we saved Jimmy Backus, and in the end of the book, he is a guide too, just like Ellie. And he's a nice kid that helps other people. So he went from being a really bad kid to being a really good kid. Yeah?
Is there any more fairies that you can name?
Amadeus, he's like the Archangel Michael. If you read the Bible, he's a warrior. There's Uni May. She is Ellie's baby brother's Fioran. There is, let's see, Nextra. Nextra was Ellie's Fioran when she was a little girl. So on one of her trips to Fiore, she actually got to go to Nextra's house, and she saw all kinds of pictures on the wall of little kids that Nextra had been the Fioran for. And one of the pictures was of one of the Kennedy kids. And you guys are too little, but John F. Fitzgerald Kennedy was president of the United States, and he had 2 little kids. So Nextra actually lived as a Fioran in the White House in the United States, taking care of one of the children. Anybody else have any questions? Are you all going to start rereading your works a few more times? Because there are lots and lots of mistakes. I'll share with Mrs. Spenle my list of 10 words that you should never, ever, ever use. As a matter of fact, I'll just leave a copy with her.
Fabulous, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And boys and girls, remember to never give up.
Yes.
Just keep working.
Yeah. And that's the big thing, is that so many times I put this book down. A few times I did it on purpose. I needed to walk away for a couple of months before I came back to read it again, because you can't find the mistakes when you keep reading it over and over and over. You have to walk away and do something else. Otherwise, you just can't see, because you're too close to it. I wrote it. I like it. I love the story. I love the Fiorans. I love all the excitement in the book. But I wrote it, so I'm not able to catch my errors when I keep reading it too many times in a row.
Boys and girls, did she sound upset at all when her editor was telling her that she should change some things? No.
No, because it makes it better. Much, much better. And that's what I want. I want the best thing possible for kids to read. Okay? Because in a couple of years, you guys are probably going to want to read the book when it's out. So I want it to be the best book it can possibly be when you read it.
It comes later, you can. All right, boys and girls, what do we